The Be a Man podcast brought to you by Anchor. So, I was having a conversation last week with one of my mentors from college. Really bright guy, really has an incredible IQ, and truly has a really refreshing way of looking at society and the world at large. Okay, so needless to say, when he speaks on certain topics, actually there's very few topics that he talks on or speaks about that I don't listen to or try to gain something from. So we were talking about, male leadership and, the phenomenon of single motherhood in America and things like that. And he said something that stood out to me, and it really made me want to do an episode about. And he said that men who were raised as boys to be overly emotional normally tend to do very badly on the global market competitively. And at first, the natural sense of, alpha malehood is to, try to find a way to argue against that, because what it insinuates is that guys are somehow weaker on the very competitive open market if they were raised to, be overly emotional. Now, he didn't say guys who were raised to be emotional and, have their emotions in check failed to compete, but he said guys who are overly emotional. And I think more times than not, we have more guys who are overly emotional than we have guys who know how to utilize their emotions but still know how to keep them in check. And it's one of those things that you can't really formulate an argument against. I mean, it's really hard to argue against that, because unfortunately, he's absolutely right when he says that. Boys who are raised to be overly emotional normally tend to be less logical in thinking. And one of the ways to win in business, or to win on the open or global market, or, any market that you're in, I don't care if you're talking local, state, federal, international, the people who generally sit at the top are logical. They're logical thinkers. They don't formulate too much on emotion. And, there's a generation of men who were raised to be overly emotional, and that's how you have this entire generation of beta males. And when I say beta males, I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about feminine in the sense of, being flamboyantly, obsessed with being a woman, or dressing in skirts or high heels, or wearing lipsticks or whatever. But when I mean this new feminine man, the beta male, I'm talking about guys who lack aggression, guys who are okay with losing, in a sense, which is a reason why you have so many guys falling by the wayside on a global scale sense. The way that you compete with different countries is, first you have to dominate where you are. Okay, so let me break it down to like a real simple sense, right? So say, for example, I was opening up a shoe store, right? A shoe company. The top shoe brands in North America right now are, Nikes, the Adidas, the Reeboks. So if I'm starting a new shoe company, what I would have to do is I would have to first not only be the best shoe company within my city, but I would have to be the best shoe company within my state. And then I would have to become the best shoe company within my region, and then the best shoe company within my entire country. In doing so, I would have to find a way to beat out Nike, Adidas, Reebok, all the top shoe brands. I would have to find a way to beat those companies out. It would be very easy for me to emotionally attack this. And if I were to do that, and it would solely be because that was the way that I was raised to be, I would lose 9 times out of 9. I would lose 100% of the time. So in order to combat that proverbial loss, I would have to think logically and strategically and find a way to galvanize the audiences of those brands. How can I take Nike's fan base? How can I take how can I take customers away from the top brands and give them what they're getting with Nike and Reebok, but maybe a little more? That's how you beat out the competition. That's how you corner the market. But when you're raised to be overly emotional, you think more so with your heart than you think with your brain, which is a very dangerous game. And you would never be able to win in the business world or in life in general. You can't win off emotions. There's really nothing in this world you can win off emotions. You can meet a nice girl and you can love her and you can be faithful to her and you could, be loyal to her and all those things. But if you don't have revenue, if you cannot provide currency, and I don't care if this is a well-to-do woman who could, make her own money, or maybe she has a great salary. You can't do anything for this woman unless you have currency of your own. So there is a level of emotion that's good to have, is healthy to have. But when you're overly emotional, you tend to lack in the common sense department, or I'm not going to say common sense, I'm going to say the critical thinking department. Critical thinking is very vital. It's very important. It's one of those things that you have to have, like oxygen and food and shelter. Critical thinking should be right along in there. It should be an actual sense, but it's not. And normally you have a few instances where someone may have been spoon-fed a certain lifestyle or a certain way of living. But as far as the people who have to generate their own success, people who have to go out and get it out the mud on their own, your success is predicated on you being more logical and having more critical thinking capabilities than it is you being emotional. And I feel like it makes you really soft too when you're raised to be overly emotional. You're not able to take black and white data or basic information and able to calculate it into something that's profitable and beneficial. So someone could tell you and show you that there's a large amount of people in low-income areas that purchase certain types of items, right? So let's just say Jordans for the sake of conversation. In low minority areas, low income areas, people like to buy J's, right? In areas where the annual income is below $12,000 a year gross, people like to spend money on tennis shoes that cost upwards of $200, $300, $400. That's a fact. That's not an emotion. That's not a stereotype. That's not a guess. That's something that really happens. If you were to break down the demographic of people who generally keep the Jordan brand afloat, I mean, you may have a few celebrities and, well-to-do people who buy Jordans, but most people who buy Jordans are people who can't afford them. And I'm not saying can't afford them in the sense of not having the money to buy it, but I mean can't afford them in the sense of you're not in a position to, blow money on something that has no value in the sense of assets or liability. You probably don't own property. You probably don't have, investments or stocks or bonds or anything. You probably don't have $10,000 minimum saved in the bank for a rainy day. But you see nothing wrong with going out and spending $400 for a pair of limited edition Jordans that only took $2.75 to make. And the way that you understand capitalism is you create something of a certain amount of quality. It doesn't have to be the most quality thing. But you make it for the most minimum cost possible. And you quadruple the value once you present it to the market. So I take a $3 pair of shoes that takes $3 to make, and I ship it out to Finish Line and Foot Locker to sell for $350. And if I get enough people to get behind this product and purchase this product, I make such a large profit that now I can lessen the quality of the material, only because now my product has value because of a symbol. So as long as I have a symbol on this product, the quality no longer matters. So I can put that Jordan symbol on a pair of shoes that's made out of toilet paper. People will still buy it because of the symbol. It represents a certain status in our communities in the low-income areas to where people would buy it. And that's just the black and white logical viewpoint of it. Do I agree with it personally? No, I think I don't think that's fair to the people who consumed it. But if you're looking, that's me looking at it from an emotional state. If I'm looking at it from a logical dollar and cents way, if you're looking at it from the eyes of a corporation, then it makes perfect sense. If you create something of medium to low value and you can sell it for a great price and people are, crazy enough to purchase it and support it financially, then why not? That's how this country was built. Well, the country was built on free labor, but I'm not going to get into that. But we just have to really get out of this mindset that these soft boys who are raised to be super soft, more soft than they would normally be, are able to compete in the real world once they get out on their own. They won't be. And I'm not saying you have to abuse a kid or talk to a kid like crap or treat them bad, but you do have to have a sense of realistic outlook on life when you're dealing with boys and girls too. But this is the Be a Man podcast, so I'm speaking particularly to the male audience. And this is the same generation too that is, I think it's called the cupcake generation, where everyone gets an award for showing up. I coached a little league basketball team last summer, and my team, there was 12 teams in the league, and we finished 7th, I think. And they gave everyone trophies. And because I want to maintain a good relationship with the parents and the kids and everything, and you don't want to come off as that crazy, bitter old guy, I distributed the trophies out to the team, even though we really didn't deserve it. I feel like nothing is given, and if you want something, you truly have to work for it, and you shouldn't be rewarded for mediocre. But that's just because I wasn't raised to be overly emotional. I had to grow up really quick, and I had to see life for what it was at an early age. So that really helped me, even though at the time it may have been kind of a curse. But now, looking back in hindsight, I appreciate that because I understand how the world works and why the world works the way it works. And you can't put too much emotion into that. It's great to have emotion. It keeps you sane. It keeps you balanced out as a human. But you also have to have a logical viewpoint of society and why society the way it is and why it works the way it does. And I encourage everyone to, if you have a son, please don't raise him to be overly soft. You cannot protect him from every single issue and problem that's going to occur in life. You cannot. You're always going to love him. You're going to always be there to protect him, but you have to allow him to fall sometimes. And you don't always have to help him up. Sometimes things aren't going to be okay. And that's okay. That's all right. What we have to get back to doing collectively. I know some parents do it. I know some guys who raise their sons to be real men. And when I say real men, I mean alpha in the sense to where they're able to experience a certain issue and they're able to logically come up with strategies for how to solve problems. They don't ball up in a corner and cry, or they don't hide behind their moms or their wives or their girlfriend's skirt and wait for her to do something. They stand up, stick their chest out, hold their head high, and they take care of whatever the hell that they have to do at that time to get the ship back afloat. Being a man is standing tall when it's rough weather. It's easy to be that guy when things are going good, when the money's flowing and, everything is looking sunny. But when that bad weather hit, you lose a job or something else happens, you find out your old lady cheating on you or whatever happens, you go to the doctor and you get a bad report or someone close to you die. It's okay to have emotion. And I encourage young men to have emotion and to utilize emotions as is needed. But you also have to have a healthy balance of being logical and to be able to think critically and not always think from emotion. Think with your brain first. There's so many guys who threw their lives away. They're in prison or they're in a cemetery because they reacted emotionally and they didn't react logically. Like, there's right now somewhere in this world, I guarantee you, there's a guy who's sitting in a prison cell because a guy stepped on his shoes at a nightclub. And he just so happened to have a weapon on him. So he said, you know what? This guy disrespected me. I'm going to kill this guy. Or because two guys were having sex with the same woman and they didn't know about each other. So now I'm going to kill this guy because he's sleeping with my woman. When you can logically think, all right, me and you sleeping with the same girl, you stepped on my shoes. Will any of those two facts matter in 2 weeks or a month? It may matter within a month if you loved her, but what I'm saying is life continues and we cannot continue to make lifelong decisions based off of temporary bullshit. We cannot. Raise these boys and these young men to be logical, critical thinkers. Question everything. I cannot stress this enough. It is okay to be, I think it's a pessimist, but you don't want to be a pessimist in the sense that like you're negatively thinking about things. But it's okay to really break things down. Don't accept the world the way it is just because someone told you it was this way. It's okay to research. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to be inquisitive about things, to understand how they work. And then you find a way to make them work better. You look for a niche that isn't being serviced. You create something and you present it to the world, and you do it in a way that no one else is doing it, and you do it at a high level. That's how you take over the world. That's how you become great. That's how you become legendary. But you don't do that. You don't even get to that point in theory by being emotional. You have to do it by being logical thinking. You have to have an alpha mentality, and that's how you do it. So, before I get to my drawn out long rant about nothing else, let me end this episode. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Be a Man podcast. I'm CJ. Until next time, I'm out. The Be a Man podcast brought to you by Anchor. I'm going to get right into it today, guys. So, earlier this week, I was going over my blueprint for an organization that I'm getting ready to start. So I was looking at, what I have accomplished up until now. I was trying to see if I was still on schedule and how much more I needed to accomplish before I got to the grand opening, right? So on top of that, Thursday of this week, I went to a pre-licensing course, which is a prerequisite before you're able to send in your application for licensing. Licensing is very important. You can't open any business really without a license. So the non-profit sector is no different. So anyway, what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about understanding and appreciating the process. So everything under the sun has a process to it. The reason why a box of cake has directions and instructions on the back is to illustrate to you how the process is supposed to go in regards of baking that particular cake. So, you have to add the water and, add the egg, and you have to beat it to an even consistency. And then you bake for a certain amount of minutes, or you may have to add butter or whatever for the moisture. But whatever you have to do, there's a process that you have to endure in order for that cake to come out the right way. So if you're an entrepreneur or you're not an entrepreneur, you have a really cool career that you're passionate about or you like, there is a process to each and everything that we do. And far times too often we look at what's ahead versus where we've come thus far. So we look ahead and we see so much work, and that becomes intimidating, as it should. It's a healthy intimidation, though. It shouldn't be anything that to where you think to yourself, oh, I can't do this, or this is too hard, or it shouldn't be that kind of intimidation. You should look at it as a challenge, and it's a healthy challenge. It's a good challenge because you understand that this is the test that you're going to have to go through just to get there. So we're not talking about once you've actually started and, whether or not you're going to be a success once you get there, which is going to be a challenge within itself. But when you endure the process, okay, Joel Embiid says it for the 76ers in the NBA, trust the process. But what does he mean when you say trust the process? The Sixers were bad for a long, long, long time. And in the midst of them being really bad, they were able to add and acquire a few pieces that would change the trajectory of the franchise. So now when you say Philadelphia 76ers, you're not laughing. You're saying, oh, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Darko Saric, Robert Covington, and Markelle Fultz, if he develops. You're looking at a pretty solid top 2, top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. Versus the last 6 or 7 years prior to last year, they were, pretty much a D-League level team playing in the NBA. So there was a process to that. And there's no difference in what you're doing in everyday life. If you're a chef, if you're, a postal worker, you're a teacher, you have a blue-collar job, you work in a factory, you do construction, whatever it is that you do, there is a process to what you do. There is a process. And some people call it, policy, code of ethics, or whatever. There's a certain way to do what it is that you do every single day. And if you're someone like myself who believes that you should, climb the ladder and you should, go out and create your own brand and build your own company or organization or what have you, you have to understand that the day you conceive that thought in your head isn't going to be the day you have your grand opening. There's a lot of steps in between. You have to, visualize it. You have to be able to put it down on paper, and you have to be able to make it make sense to other people, because your ability to be able to galvanize others and bring other people in to assist you in building your dream is going to be very predicated on your ability to be able to be successful. You can't do it by yourself. You have to have a team, whether that's the board of directors, whether that's angel investors, people who can put money behind what it is that you want to do. You have to have that. It's very illogical to think that you can do that on your own, because you can't. It's never been done, and it won't be done. You have to have a team. You have to have a strong supporting cast, and to be able to do that. But I do not want you guys to look ahead at what's needed to be done and let that discourage you. I don't want that. I want you to look at what you have accomplished and look at how far you've come thus far and use that as the motivational force to help ease your mind, if you will, and help you become more confident in how far you have to go. And don't compare yourself and your stage to anyone else. You're unique. Your situation is unique. Your ideal is unique. What you bring to the table is unique. No one else can do what you do the way you can do it. And you have to honestly and truly believe in that. Okay? You have to. It's very important for you to be able to appreciate the small victories that are in between. Okay? In the game of football, every play isn't a touchdown, all right? And I use a lot of sports references, as you can tell, because I'm a huge sports fan. But, every play isn't going to be a first down. Every play isn't going to be a touchdown. But the idea is that if you move the chains, you're getting closer to the goal. And you have to have that same mindset in business or in everyday life. Whatever it is you're trying to do, whether it's trying to be a better parent, a better husband, a better wife, a better employee, at work, a better friend, whatever it is, there are steps to becoming better. And our ability to be able to dedicate ourselves to those processes and commit 100% is whether or not we're going to be successful. So that's all I got for today. Thank you guys so much for listening to the Be a Man podcast. Corin and I appreciate you very much. Thank you to Anchor for the platform. And I'm CJ, and I'm out. The Be a Man podcast, brought to you by Anchor. For those of you who don't know, I am a huge sports fan. I love all sports: basketball, football, baseball, soccer, hockey, man. Track and field. Any type of event with a ball involved, I'm pretty much a fan of. So, needless to say, there's not too many NFL games to come on that I miss. So I want to do an episode about Thursday's night game, the Cleveland Browns versus the New York Jets, and I want to bring up a point. I want to bring up a conspiracy. Okay, this is a theory, whatever you want to call it. Because it's impossible for me to watch something and take it at face value, right or wrong. All right, so in watching the Thursday night game, maybe I was the only person who noticed it. Maybe other people kind of noticed it but didn't pay too much attention to it. I noticed that there's a narrative that's been created since Baker Mayfield was selected number one in this past April's draft. And with him being selected number one, I realized that whoever was going to be the veteran quarterback bought in to start until he was ready would be somewhat sacrificed at some point. And when I say sacrifice, I don't mean like, in a dark Illuminati sense. I just mean there would be things coordinated to make this quarterback look really bad in a situation to where you would have no choice but to put in Baker Mayfield, who, in my opinion, was a decent college quarterback. He was really good or decent for what Oklahoma did. Kind of a pro-style offense, but not really. They played some really weak secondaries in the Big 12, but that's neither here or there for me to say. He's not a quarterback who's going to come in at the NFL level and really change too much in that sense. And he's overrated in a lot of different regards. Overrated in a sense to where they're going to overinflate his abilities on the field to make it seem like whoever was placed ahead of him had no business being there. Now, Tyrod Taylor, or Tyrod, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but, he was never a top NFL quarterback. But he was always a really good quarterback for the crappy teams that he's played on. I mean, this guy took the Buffalo Bills to the playoffs, and that same team this year may go 0-16. They're really bad. And he took them to the playoffs. And, the way Tyrod was looking Thursday night wasn't Tyrod Taylor. And it wasn't because he was injured or the guys weren't just motivated. Something more is going on beneath the surface, and I can't really put a finger on what it is, but I can say that there may have been some strings pulled or some deals created to get Taylor out of there and to get Mayfield in. And as crazy as that sounds, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be about winning and, giving your team the best chance to be successful, but it's also a business. It's about marketing. It's about how much money can we add to the corporation. That number 6 jersey is really popular, man. It's really popular. And we've seen this across like a lot of different sports. We've seen this to where the heir apparent is rushed in prematurely, not necessarily because the person who's starting isn't good. Now, Cleveland hadn't won a game up until that point, and he kind of did throw away the Pittsburgh game, but I don't think there's any debate versus who's the better quarterback between Tyrod Taylor and Baker Mayfield. Taylor's a better quarterback, and it's not a debate. Baker Mayfield has the potential to be better, but he only has the potential to be better because he's a rookie. That's the only reason why. And it really looked like Taylor was kind of throwing the game almost in a sense. Like, there was a meeting and he was told at this meeting, hey, we're going to go with Baker. And instead of just outright benching you, we want you to look really shitty. And kind of throw and sacrifice your, reputation and your game so we can look justified in bringing in Baker Mayfield, who played very average and on his first drive only led them to a field goal. And at halftime, they were speaking like he was the second coming of Joe Montana or Peyton Manning or something, which is really sad. But I just saw things beneath the surface with my own 2 eyes that made me wonder, Taylor isn't this bad. And when Baker came in and was a game manager, really wasn't that good. Really wasn't that good. He looked like a Tony Romo who didn't throw an interception. That's what he looked like to me. But I wasn't overly impressed. Even though they won, I would say they won because of their defense and they won because of their running game. Carlos Hyde had an amazing game. Amazing running game. I mean, they have 3 really, really good running backs in that backfield. They got Chubb and they got Duke Johnson III and they got Carlos Hyde. So great running game. Really solid defense. To play quarterback for this team, you just need to not turn the ball over and you need to just hand the ball off and maybe get a long third down here and there when you need it. Which with Jarvis Landry is really, really easy to do. What I saw Thursday night was more of a business deal. It wasn't really one quarterback outplaying the other. It wasn't Baker coming in and saving the day. No, it wasn't that. It was a guy who was very capable. Took Pittsburgh to overtime in the rain, but for some reason, the Jets defense was just absolutely shut down. He underthrew a pass to Callaway, which he has hit 7 times since training camp with ease. But anyway, let me know if I'm crazy or I'm just making this up. Just something that I saw that kind of made me want to raise an eyebrow. But that's all I got. Conspiracy NFL Saturdays. That's all I got. The Be Your Man podcast brought to you by Anchor. I'm CJ, and I'm out. Peace.